War and its Aftermath, a study about the deep and lasting impact. A documentary on the aftermath of a war by Untold Facts from Morali Edutech. This documentary is released in the light of the current Iran-Israel war and the Ukraine-Russia war, among others. While many take pleasure in following the events through digital and print media, we must consider the suffering and distress of those who are directly affected. War is among the most catastrophic human activities, leaving behind a trail of destruction, displacement, and despair. While often justified by leaders in the name of defense, justice, or liberation, wars rarely deliver lasting peace. Instead, they unleash violence that reshapes societies, economies, and human lives for generations. The aftermath of war is not merely a cessation of gunfire. It marks the beginning of a long and painful road to recovery. The destruction during war. War brings immediate and visible consequences: loss of life, destruction of infrastructure, and the disintegration of civil order. Cities become battlegrounds, homes are reduced to rubble, and once thriving communities are turned into ghost towns. Soldiers and civilians alike suffer. In many conflicts, non-combatants, especially women, children, and the elderly, bear the brunt of the violence. Beyond physical destruction, war erodes the social fabric. Families are torn apart, trust is shattered, and ethnic or political divisions deepen. The psychological trauma inflicted by war, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety, can affect survivors for the rest of their lives. Economic consequences. The economic consequences of war are significant and enduring. Conflict interrupts trade, devastates industries, and depletes national finances. Nations involved in extended warfare frequently experience economic downturns, rising inflation, and a drop in quality of life. Competent workers are sent to the front lines, leading to a reduction in agricultural and industrial output, while government expenditures are redirected from education, healthcare, and infrastructure to support military operations. Reconstruction may span several decades and necessitates not just financial resources, but also political commitment and global collaboration. Countries frequently become reliant on external assistance, loans, or the exploitation of their natural resources, which can result in new dependencies or conflicts. At this point, let us go through the outcome of the two world wars. World War I, Europe's infrastructure and economies were shattered, resulted in an estimated 15 to 19 million deaths and 23 million wounded, orphaned millions of children across Europe. Estimates range from 1.7 million children orphaned in Europe alone. Precise numbers are hard to determine because many orphans were not officially documented or cared for in institutions, according to the International Encyclopedia of the First World War. The total immediate economic cost of the war, including munitions, property losses, and other expenses, was estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. U.S. and USSR emerged as superpowers. Estimates death range from 70 to 85 million. 6 million Jews killed, representing approximately 3% of the world's population at the time. An estimated 13 million children across Europe were orphaned as a result of the war. Tens of millions of refugees, border changes, and forced migrations. Atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki changed global warfare. The direct monetary cost of governments involved in World War II is estimated to be over $1 trillion, according to Britannica. Remnants of a war or armed conflict, political and social upheaval. In the aftermath of conflict, political structures can either disintegrate or undergo significant transformation. In regions affected by war, it is not unusual to witness revolutions, changes in governance, or military takeovers. Occasionally, authoritarian governments emerge to fill the power void, frequently rationalized as essential for preserving stability. Societies often experience profound mistrust and lingering resentment. Atrocities such as war crimes and ethnic cleansing can create significant divisions within communities. Therefore, the processes of reconciliation, justice, and the restoration of trust are as crucial as the physical rebuilding of infrastructure. Mechanisms like truth commissions, tribunals, and peacekeeping missions are employed to mend societal rifts, although they frequently encounter challenges and opposition. Displacement and refugees. One of the most visible and heartbreaking consequences of war is the displacement of populations. Millions are forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees or internally displaced persons. They face uncertain futures, often living in overcrowded camps or foreign lands with limited rights. Host countries may struggle to accommodate refugees, leading to political tensions and humanitarian crises. Children lose access to education, healthcare becomes scarce, and a lack of stability fosters environments where extremism and exploitation can take root. Destruction of ecosystems and biodiversity. Habitat destruction, bombing, landmines, and deforestation devastate natural habitats. Loss of biodiversity. War disrupts wildlife migration, breeding, and food chains. Pollution and toxic contamination. Chemical contaminants. Use of chemical weapons such as napalm, mustard gas, pollutes soil and water. Oil spills and fires. Targeting oil infrastructure leads to air and water pollution. Air and climate impacts. Carbon emissions. Massive fuel consumption and explosions release large amounts of CO2 and particulate matter. Climate disruption. Wildfires caused by bombing or deliberate forest burning can temporarily affect local climates. Water resource contamination and scarcity. Polluted water supplies. Explosions and infrastructure collapse can contaminate rivers and groundwater. Weaponizing water. Dams and rivers are sometimes deliberately destroyed or diverted. Resource depletion and overexploitation. Overuse of natural resources. Armies overharvest wood, food, and fuel in occupied areas. Looting of mineral wealth. Conflicts over resources such as diamonds, oil, lead to environmental damage. Long-term contamination from radioactive and hazardous materials. Nuclear fallout. Nuclear bomb testing, where use leaves long-term radioactive contamination. Depleted uranium munitions, linked to soil and groundwater contamination, and potential health risks. Post-war environmental hazards. Landmines and unexploded ordnance, dangers to civilians and wildlife. Render farmland unusable. Military waste. Abandoned tanks, fuel, ammunition, and waste pollute land and water. The long road to peace. Ending a war does not immediately lead to peace. True recovery requires rebuilding not only infrastructure but institutions, trust, and a sense of shared purpose. Transitional justice, inclusive governance, education reform, and mental health services are critical in post-conflict societies. The international community plays a crucial role in supporting post-war recovery. Peacekeeping, development aid, and diplomatic engagement can help stabilize regions and prevent the recurrence of violence. However, lasting peace depends ultimately on the ability of local actors to reconcile, rebuild, and reimagine their future together. Environmental impacts. Recovery can take decades. Some environments, like forests or coral reefs, take generations to recover, if at all. Climate and conflict feedback loop. Environmental damage can fuel further conflict, especially over water and arable land. Majority of the people lose in a war. Lives are destroyed, communities fall apart, and economies suffer. But a handful gain, often at a very high cost to others. Arms and defense industries. Weapons manufacturers often make huge profits during wars. Companies that produce guns, tanks, missiles, and aircraft see increased demand. War becomes a business for them, with government contracts worth billions of dollars. Political leaders or regimes. Some leaders gain power or hold on control during times of war. War can be used to distract from internal problems like poor economies or corruption. In dictatorships, war can be used to silence opposition and strengthen control. Private contractors and mercenary groups. Some private companies are paid to provide security, logistics, or even fighting forces. These companies often charge high prices and may not be fully accountable for their actions. Smugglers and war profiteers. In war zones, black markets thrive. Smugglers profit by selling weapons, medicine, food, or fuel, often at inflated prices. Corrupt officials and middlemen sometimes take advantage of chaos to steal resources or aid. Countries or groups seeking territory or influence. Some countries start wars to gain land, power, or control over resources. Even if the war is costly, leaders may see it as a long-term investment in influence, but the majority lose. Civilians, especially women, children, the elderly, lose homes, health, and loved ones. Soldiers may suffer or die, often sent into conflict without a choice. Entire nations may be left with ruined economies, refugee crises, and decades of trauma. Facts to remember. It is estimated that around 187 to 231 million people have died in war since 1900, according to the Imperial War Museums and the Center for International and Security Studies at Maryland. There were over 140 million orphans worldwide, according to UNICEF.org, with 61 million in Asia, 52 million in Africa, 10 million in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 7.3 million in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. In 2024, global military expenditure reached a record $2.7 trillion, marking a 9.4% increase from 2023, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. In 2024, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is seeking $1.8 billion to assist 43 million people facing acute hunger by helping them produce their own food. War is not just a moment in time. It is a rupture that reshapes history, scars landscapes, and redefines national identities. Its aftermath is complex and enduring, affecting every layer of society. While some nations have risen from the ashes stronger and more united, others remain trapped in cycles of violence and instability. To prevent future wars and better manage their aftermath, the global community must prioritize diplomacy, justice, and the human cost of conflict in all its decisions. So who gains from war? Usually those in power or those with money to invest in destruction. But most people, those who live, work, and raise families, pay the price. War may offer short-term gains for a few, but it brings long-term pain for the many. It's up to all of us to remember the lessons of war and to work for a more peaceful future. All nations and individuals denounced the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II, and the global community witnessed the devastating effects of nuclear weapons. Yet, ironically, these very nations continue to amass nuclear arsenals. What implications does this hold? All these extremely destructive arsenals, including nuclear weapons, have been amassed by these nations not to defend against aliens or beings from another universe, but rather to confront one another. Yet, every morning, they discuss peace while seated atop a mountain of lethal armaments. The world has seen numerous wars, including the two major ones, along with their consequences. Regardless of the reasons behind these conflicts, humanity as a whole has gained nothing from these wars. While the losses have been staggering, and yet no one seems to have learned from the lessons of the past. In light of this, how can we consider ourselves the most intelligent and advanced beings on the planet? Reflect on this. Thanks for spending your valuable time with us. Please share and subscribe to our channel.